Nobody's going to know that we recorded these. Oh, this cat's out of the bag. There it is. Got to be professional. Welcome into MJT Football, the Saturday Speakeasy show. I hope you guys are all having a beautiful weekend. We're going to talk some fantasy football. See me here looking clean, rocking the old man's jersey. Congratulations on child number 10. Speakeasy. Knock twice. Come in here and get some of this sweet, sweet, sweet fantasy football information. I couldn't find the video.
We don't need it. The Warzone Sports Network presents the Fantasy Football Speakeasy.
I had to cut that off because I get bored. I get bored with that, Tony. We got to come up with a better. I'm sorry. We got to come up with something better that gets us pumped up for fantasy football. You know, I'm trying to knock on the door, and you're letting me in. It's like my dog just barked because I knocked real quick. But I'm trying to knock on the door. It's like when I went to Charger camp and I knocked on the VIP and nobody let me in, Tony. Come on.
All right, let it go. We get it. You went to Chargers camp. You're a Raider fan. Jesus.
Knock on wood if you're with me. You know what that's all about. All right, Today we're going over top 10 wide receivers, fantasy football-wise, and then we'll also throw out some honorable mentions. And I was thinking maybe, if off the top of your head, if there's a late-round player that you guys don't mind sharing out there and about that you think could have some fantasy relevance. We're getting extremely close to draft season. I'm getting lots of emails about my different leagues. Even my nephew, guys, he's like 12 years old. He's like, hey, I started a fantasy league. Like, okay, I'll take your money. I don't care. It's your old man's money anyways. I'll steal it. But I'm ready to go. We are going to give the 10 through 6. And then 5 through 1, we'll go that way. We would love for all of you guys not only to consider subscribing to the channel, but also leaving your top 10 fantasy wide receivers in there. If you don't have them, you can react to where we put your favorite players on our lists and tell us how smart I am and how dumb these other two are. Feel free to do that in the comments. You guys know I read them all. Which one of you would like to go first?
Okay, so we're doing 10 through 6 first, or honorable mentions first, or are we just going to group those two together today?
Do your honorable mention and then get into your 10 through 6. And don't give like 5 honorable mentions. Give 1 or 2 so you don't steal all of them.
I'll give 1 honorable mention.
There you go.
To Calvin Ridley. He's already finished as top 10 receiver once in his career with Matt Ryan in an offense that actually had a lot of other fantasy point stealers, I'll say. A lot of guys like Julio Jones was in that offense. Devonta Freeman was a fantasy beast back then. He took a lot of points off the board for Calvin Ridley, and Calvin Ridley still finished edge of top 10 that last season before he suffered the suspension. I don't think the comeback for a receiver is the same as a quarterback. A lot of people say, oh, they're going to have rust, this or that. I think for a receiver, it's a lot easier if you stayed in shape, you kept training, you kept running around throughout that entire time. Just keep it going. And I know we overhype the training camp clips, but sometimes you don't overhype the training camp clips. And it's just confirmation that this guy has been getting better and is still at the level that he was before. So Calvin Ridley's my honorable mention. He's not my 11th ranked receiver, but I'm giving that to him just because I think that he definitely needs a shout out in this show. My 11th ranked receiver and 10th ranked receiver are kind of like an A and B. I'm giving it to both Smith and A.J. Brown. I'm going on this hot take here that Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown's stats are going to flip. And if that's the case, then A.J. Brown is still going to finish around 12, like Smith did last year. I think he finished at 14 or something like that. And Smith is going to finish in the top 10. And then, are you trying to stop me? Or
No. I was just doing hand movement.
I just think those stat lines are going to flip. Smith actually kept up. If you look at last season, they both had 2 outlier games. A.J. Brown had a week where he scored 45 points. Devonta Smith started off the season with a 0-pointer in week 1. You eliminate those 2 outliers, and you kind of get the real averages per week. They almost lined up identically for fantasy points per game, targets per game, receptions per game, and even touchdowns per game. A.J. Brown just slightly edged him on touchdowns. That's the only reason that he would have finished higher than him if you take out those 2 outliers. At 9, I have Garrett Wilson. I just think that the potential for this guy, the ceiling for this guy is wide receiver 1 this season with Aaron Rodgers, and all the great praise that Garrett Wilson's been getting out of training camp from Rodgers just lets me confirm that he's going to be the wide receiver 1. He is going to be their top target. And we've seen in offenses before with Rodgers, he feeds his wide receiver one almost at a relentless rate. And he's just going to lean on Garrett Wilson all year long in every big situation they have. And I think he's going to score a lot more touchdowns this year than he did last year. He had a phenomenal rookie year. We all know what the talent that this guy is. The thing I like most also, he's sliding into the beginning of round 3 in a lot of drafts. That could be your wide receiver 2, which would be the best wide receiver 2 maybe in your fantasy league. At 8, I can't deny this guy a spot, even though I'm a Lions doubter, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I just think he's going to continue to raise the bar in that offense. The better he gets, and he's clearly the best receiver there, and they're clearly going to throw the ball a lot by drafting Jahmyr Gibbs. At 7, I have Stephon Diggs, which a lot of people have been telling me is really low for Diggs. I hear you guys. I think that it is a little bit low maybe. It's just there's a lot of good receivers in the league right now. Something's fishy in Buffalo. I still think Stephon Diggs is going to be a top 10 receiver, but maybe it's not going to be as dominant. It's not going to be as ridiculous as we've seen in years past. At number 6, even though he sits when he pees, I have Davante Adams. I'm so scared of the quarterback situation for the Raiders as far as fantasy football goes. I think I could tank the entire offense's fantasy value if Jimmy G goes down in week 5, but it's still Davante Adams. So even with Aiden O'Connell, I think Davante Adams is going to be a dude. Now, he did get hurt today. I don't know how serious it is or what's going on, but news broke today that he tweaked something in training camp. So that's something to keep an eye on. At 5, a guy that I think is really going to finish.
You mean news broke yesterday?
Yes, news broke. The news broke yesterday about Davante Adams. Joe, react to 1 or 2 things from Mike's list here.
I don't really have a lot to complain about Mike's list. Like I'm listening to it, and I understand where he's going on the Eagle standpoint. I understand everything there. So I like Mike's list. I'm not going to argue with Mike's list. It's I was listening to it and I was like, where can I stop him? Where can I get into it? But I like every point that Mike made, so I'm good with Mike. There's a couple changes that I'll make on my own, and I'll get onto that. But I'll let Mike. I'm not gonna go hard on Mike's list. I think that was good. I think it was a good list.
Yeah, Mike, one more time, 10 through 6.
Yeah, it's probably not a great thing that Joe's agreeing with my list like this. I'm a little scared. I change it up a little bit before we get to the season now. But 10 is Devonta Smith with A.J. Brown kind of as a B. 9, Garrett Wilson. 8, Amon-Ra St. Brown. 7, Stephon Diggs. And 6, Davante Adams.
Awesome. And if it's your first time here at MJT Football, please consider subscribing and commenting on the ludicrousness of Mike's list here. I just want to say this. The A.J. Brown, that was the first year working with Jalen Hurts. And I hear what you're saying. I think they both can be top 10, top 12 guys easily. I just would still prefer to have A.J. Brown because he's just different. Like he's another kind of specimen physically, and I'll take that. Even though he's got the bigger body, he has had more of the injuries though. That's kind of the concerning thing.
And if you kind of just look at the logs, like you want to have huge games, but he's very big play dependent. Like it seems like it's going to be a 30-point performance or a 10-point performance, which is still very good. I'm not saying don't draft A.J. Brown. I like the consistent guy. The guy that has 100 receptions.
It feels like there's more value in drafting Devonta Smith, though, because of where he's still falling in the draft. I'm going to comment real quick on you. So I had Ridley at 15, and I think I do like the shout out here, your honorable mention. I don't necessarily believe in rust for a guy that took time off as much as a guy who spent that time rehabbing the whole time. I think there's rust from injury. There's a little bit of mental rust, trusting whatever mechanism in your body needs to be fixed. But as far as like just being pushed out of the game because you put $300 on a football game that didn't matter, being punished for as stupid as that, the NFL will look back on this and it'll be just as dumb as banning Josh Gordon for smoking trees. Like, give me a break. That's so dumb. So dumb. Joe, are you ready to hit your honorable mention and 10 through 6? Look at him throwing hands over there.
I've been ready. I've been ready for this.
Boxer offensive. Go.
So, like I said, I didn't have much to argue with Mike's top or 6 through 10 or whatever it was. But Mike, I have St. Brown and I have A.J. Brown as honorable mentions. So they're not in my top 10. They're right there. They were in your top bottom half of your top 10, so I'm okay with that. I have Terry McLaurin as an honorable mention because I like Eric Bieniemy and what he's going to do with that offense, and I'm not too down on Sam Howell. I know Tony's a Sam Howell believer. He's been a Washington quarterback believer for years, not just Sam Howell. Tony just believes everybody they put at center back there. But here are my top 10. Here we go. This guy's as a shock to me but I'm talking about fantasy football, right? And we're going to put this guy up there. We're going to put Garrett Wilson in the top 10, but I'm going to put this guy up there. We're going to put Chris Olave from the New Orleans Saints at number 10. I think he's going to get some long ball shots, get some touchdowns, and be there. Number 9, Garrett Wilson is my number 9 guy, so we match up there, Mike. Number 8, I have Jalen Waddle at number 8. What he can get with Tyreek Hill on the other side, getting those little short passes, and he scores a lot of touchdowns. So I got Jalen Waddle there. Number 7, I have Stephon Diggs, and number 6, Davante Adams. I'm not really too worried about what Davante. I know Davante, maybe the deep passes will be gone a little bit, but I'm not too worried about what Davante Adams will do. I think he'll be the red zone target, and I think he can take some of these and have a lot of like short passes and have a lot of good yak yards after that. But that's my 6 through 10. Olave, Garrett Wilson, Waddle, Diggs, and Adams.
Very close to mine. Very, very close to my list. I like it, Joe. I do have one beef, though, and it's carrying over to each show at this point with the Jets beef. You can't tell me Aaron Rodgers is going to stink and then put his wide receiver 1 in the top 10. You got to pick one or the other.
Did I say Aaron Rodgers is going to stink? But I said the Jets aren't going to make the playoffs. I never said Aaron Rodgers is going to suck. And we're talking about fantasy football here. Fantasy football, Garrett Wilson and the Jets could be losing games, and they got to throw the ball up and get us some garbage time points, which I'm good with.
Editor Mike, put in the clip from last week when I put Rodgers at 9 and everything that happened, please.
So I think you can, because it's not like the Saints quarterbacks weren't startable last year, but Chris Olave was, right? So I think you can. To me, it's when you say last year there was an argument where somebody was like, they had their fantasy rankings, they showed them to us, and they had Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill finishing top 12, which was smart, and then had Tua at QB 22 or whatever it was. And I was like, that math doesn't work out. If you produce 2 top 12 fantasy receivers, that's completely different. I don't think the Jets will do that. So it's kind of like Aaron Rodgers isn't really startable to me for fantasy unless there's a couple of injuries. Like there's just other guys I'd rather have more that I think will run around. But
I hear that. I'm talking about startable versus top 10 wide receiver.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're going to get there. I just want to say
we're saying Rodgers is going to be really productive if Garrett Wilson's the top 10 wide receiver. He needs 10 touchdowns to reach this mark.
No, we're not saying he's going to be productive. We're saying that he's going to find Garrett Wilson more than he finds any other Jets wide receiver. That's what we're saying. That's fantasy-wise, you're looking at for production of wide receivers. If Garrett Wilson is Rodgers' favorite wide receiver and he throws to him 8 times a game, that's 8 points in PPR right there just on receptions. So that's what we're looking at is just points of what's going to happen. Doesn't mean that they're going to have winning record or a goal for 400, 500 yards a game. It just means when Aaron Rodgers is throwing down the field, he's looking for Garrett Wilson.
I agree with you 100%.
Here's the other thing that's really like there's a ton of talent. We talked about it on yesterday's show, and how I was saying how the Jets have so much talent at wide receiver, but that talent is also often injured. Lazard, Mecole Hardman, Randall Cobb, and Corey Davis. That's 4 guys that could all have great wide receiver 2 potential. Really, I mean, maybe not Randall Cobb at this point in his career, but those other 3 guys have wide receiver 2 potential, but they're injured so often. Joe, who was your honorable mention? Remind me of that one more time. You gave
I had St. Brown, AJ Brown, so both Browns, and then I had Terry McLaurin.
Terry McLaurin, thank you. Terry McLaurin was really close to sneaking into the top 10. And then the more I did the list, I looked at it and I was like, he's not going to get more opportunities than this guy or that guy. And then he ended up being at number 16 on my list. Though he just kept falling down because Terry McLaurin's a guy that I love. But I think that what is going to make Washington's offense so great is the fact that they have multiple ways to move the football, because they're going to have Jahan Dotson in single coverage who's going to work everybody. And in year 2, I think that's a real nice jump for him. And then Curtis Samuel. So I love Terry McLaurin, but there's probably 5 guys that I would take in front of him, if I was in a really competitive league. Now, in the leagues where I want to have fun, I just draft all the guys I want, and I'll probably take Terry McLaurin in the 4th round. But
I've got McLaurin just outside my top 15 also, so I kind of agree that he deserves mentions. Last year, I think I overhyped him a little bit too much. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I think I overhyped the situation. I had him finishing in top 15, I think. Last year, I think he finished at like 21 or 17 or something like that, somewhere in the same range. I have him ranked, which is still really good. You still would like that in your lineup and in your wide receiver 2 spot, possibly.
For sure. To me, it's just about the consistency of the quarterback, and it's about throwing to guys when they're still covered. And you need experience to do that often. And they don't have experience at quarterback unless they start Jacoby Brissett, which could be something we're going to be watching in the preseason. I'm reading some stuff that maybe I might have bet on Sam Howell a little too early, like on some of these takes that I've been having about Washington. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm still going to ride with my guy, Sam Howell. And he's only become my guy in the last 10 to 12 days. Okay, here we go. I'm going to give my honorable mention to a guy that feels uncomfortable for me to even say that he's an honorable mention, but I just think he's being drafted really low. DK Metcalf. What Geno Smith did last year, I don't believe was a fluke. And I think that the sustained ability of Tyler Lockett and the emergence of Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to allow for DK to see some more one-on-one coverage. Like that, maybe not exclusively or whatever, but if he's getting one-on-one coverage and they know they can identify at the line of scrimmage, I think DK can have a little more luck with the touchdowns this year and be pushed up into that 8 to 10 range or whatever it is. So I really like drafting DK where he's falling in drafts, because on a couple of my drafts, he's been my wide receiver 3. Like, especially if I end up with Justin Jefferson in the 1st, then I come back around to the 3rd and I end up with somebody like, Garrett Wilson one time. I ended up with Keenan Allen. And then in the 5th round, I can get DK Metcalf. And those are my starting 3 wide receivers. My team is loaded in my estimation at that point. Number 10 for me, and this was really hard. I didn't want to do this at all. I wanted to put a Waddle in front of him. I wanted to put Metcalf. I wanted to put Devonta Smith, Olave, and Ridley in front of him. But I put Garrett Wilson at number 10. I think he's going to have an absolutely crazy year because he gets the advantage of having a veteran quarterback. Like, we don't really talk about how amazing it is of what Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow were able to do that rookie season, but they did have the chemistry coming from college at least. But Justin Jefferson's emergence right away is a little bit to do with Kirk Cousins. You have a veteran quarterback who can read defenses, is going to know what to do, is going to know how to change plays or different things. Like, that does help young players really emerge. And I think that's why Chris Olave, Joe, to your thing, could have a jump this year as long as Derek Carr stands in the pocket and delivers. Number 9, Amon-Ra St. Brown has to be number 10. Has to be in the top 10 to me, because he's just such an easy, just PPR. Like, he might get 150 targets this year. Like, he's going to get a lot of points, a lot of receptions. And A.J. Brown, I don't think touchdowns are a fluke. I don't think yards are a fluke. I think he's just going to continue to be a monster in that offense. Davante Adams at 7. Jimmy G is looking for the easiest option. And what's the easiest option? The guy that cooks everybody who stands in front of him. It doesn't matter. You want to put the coverage over the top? Great. He'll run a little choice route in between, and he'll get open at 7 yards and pick up some yak. Davante Adams certified himself last year as a Hall of Fame wide receiver, in my opinion. When you go from Aaron Rodgers, can you do it without him? And you have the kind of year he had last year with chaos and a new quarterback. I mean, technically he knew him from college, but it was great. Number 6, people are not going to like this, and I understand. This is why I implore you to subscribe to the channel and comment. Ja'Marr Chase at number 6.
Ooh, dropped him.
Yeah,
I think
he's getting dinged. He's getting dinged.
Well, you're a big T. Higgins fan, right? So
massive T. Higgins fan, but that's not the point. My problem is we're not talking enough about this Joe Burrow calf injury. This is serious. Like, people are acting like this is not going to be something that is going to affect him this year, even if it's short term, whatever it is. Like, I just don't think that this calf injury, if he tries to play in week 1, is just going to go away and we're never going to hear about it again. It's a serious injury.
But if he comes back healthy, who's the one guy he already has connection with?
Agreed.
I just don't think that any quarterback at his level has ever even sat out for a calf sprain. Like, a very minor injury that are just being precautious with so it doesn't cause another injury, basically.
Okay, but they were being precautious when he went down with the injury. Because if you look at the video, it's wrapped up. It's like already being treated for something. So it was already a concern. And then in practice, he's not even facing real NFL pressure, and it gave out on him. Like, it's a soft tissue thing to me. And I'm not going to bet on him playing 17 games this year, and that's tied. Because if Trevor Siemian is the other option, I'm not using a first-round pick on Ja'marr Chase, and I'm fine with it. I will miss out on Ja'marr Chase this year because I will not draft him where other people are willing to draft him. Because I'm worried.
Fair, because that is fair. If you think that Joe Burrow is going to miss time this year, it's a fair take. I will give you that, because you're not dropping him off the face of the planet. He's at 6 still in your ranking.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're putting him at 15 now because of that. So I think your take is fair. I just disagree about the severity of this calf injury. I think that this is something that he can play through if it happened like immediately, like happened in the first quarter. He sits out the second quarter. By halftime, he's back out in the third quarter.
Yeah, I think you have a big if, Tony. I think you're throwing a big if. But hey, it's your top 10. I'm not going to argue with it. But it's a big if that you're saying that Joe Burrow doesn't play. It's going to drop Ja'Marr Chase, or he's going to play hurt and it's going to struggle with that connection. So, I mean, I hope I'm in a league with you where I take Ja'Marr Chase and you don't. So I'm good with it.
Tony, you can come back to this if Joe Burrow's out for week 1 and dance on me if you want.
I will, you know me, I'm never going to celebrate somebody else's misfortune at all. And I would love for Joe Burrow to be healthy all season. I just don't.
You celebrate my misfortunes all the time.
Yeah, but I know you. That's fine. I can. I don't know Joe Burrow. Like, to me, he's just he's in a virtual world that doesn't exist to me. Like, I don't really know if he's a real person or not. I've never met him.
Don't start conspiracies now. Don't start conspiracies.
I'm just saying. To me, it's like the NFL Matrix.
That's the only way it's great.
Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure Justin Herbert was a hologram on the field. I saw a little glitch from a distance. Like, I don't even know if what I was watching at Chargers camp was real.
That was no glitch, Tony. He's just that good.
He just the ball teleports. The ball teleports for sure.
If Chase is out of your top 5, I'm interested to hear your top 5.
Well, we're going to get to that after we get to Mike's and then yours. And me and Mike are just flipped on a player, I believe. I think that where Mike had one of his players, my player will be there, and it'll be flipped back and forth. But that's the point of this. I'm just saying, for people who play fantasy, take into consideration where you're drafting and what you're investing in that to work out. And to me, I would rather, there's other guys that I would take before that, knowing what it takes, what I want out of that spot. And if
I don't know your top 5 already, but I have a feeling that me and you are going to argue over this point. So I got to write this down because I think there's going to be an argument.
I already know what you're going to say about Cooper Kupp, but I'm not even going to entertain.
Yes, that's the argument right there, Tony. You're arguing.
Okay, let me get into it.
It's not even on the same planet because they get the ball.
The same. One guy is the wide receiver himself is hurt, and the other guy you're dropping because his quarterback's hurt.
No, it's not the same thing. Anyways, I have Cooper Kupp at 5. With the hamstring injury, I'm dropping him a few slots to 5. Yeah. If he's healthy, even if he gets 1 week of practice before the season starts, I don't think there's going to be a hiccup at all. I think Kupp's going to come in and he will have a chance to be wide receiver 1, definitely a top 3 wide receiver in the league. His target share is just a little bit higher than Ja'Marr Chase, which is why I have Chase above him. But Chase we'll talk about him when we get to him on the list. At number 4, I have CeeDee Lamb. who I think is about to just have a massive season. We're about to see the arrival of CeeDee Lamb because we see what talent is there. He continues to develop. He's put on some size too. I saw him at camp the other day, and he looks so phenomenal. He didn't have to work that much. He kind of was in and out of the lineup. You could tell they're just letting him kind of stay healthy but still get his reps. But every time that he lined up on the field, I watched CeeDee Lamb, and I watched CeeDee Lamb route someone up or at least find a hole in the zone. He had a great practice today. I saw him. I have full confidence CeeDee Lamb's going to finish in the top 5 this year and, be one of the leaders in targets for receivers in the league. That was at 4. So at 3 – well, now I'm losing my train of thought here. Sorry, guys. Oh, yeah, Tyreek Hill. I have Tyreek Hill at 3. I think that this guy can go for 2,000 yards. I don't think he will, but that's what can happen. We've seen, and I just watched the Dolphin-Chargers game today while I was doing some editing this morning when I woke up, and you just see how much Tua is dependent on just throwing that thing up to Tyreek Hill. Just keep throwing it to Tyreek Hill. And even after he scooped up that fumble and took it, he also had another bomb in that game. And he's just almost an unstoppable wide receiver. I think his target share is going to be the same. Everything's going to be the same for Tyreek Hill. He's just 1 year older, so I'm a little bit worried about some things starting to add up. His game is completely based off of explosiveness, and usually those type of players cliff once they get to the end of their career. So I don't think it's going to be this year, but I think that cliff is going to come eventually. So that's why I don't have him at 2 or 1. At 2, I have Ja'marr Chase, who's been, in my opinion, more like other than Cooper Kupp, the most consistent wide receiver over the last couple of years in fantasy football. He did miss some time last year, but in his last 2 seasons in the NFL, he's finished outside the top 15, I think, once in his career in a week so far in fantasy football. He's finished with more than 10 points every single game of his career in fantasy football. He is the model of consistency at the wide receiver position, along with Cooper Kupp, obviously, who does it every week as well, and the guy I have at number 1. Don't need to say much about it, Justin Jefferson, who I think is probably going to be the wide receiver 1 as long as he's healthy. I just have a little bit of fear drafting in the 1.1 position this year because last year I was just so convinced on Jonathan Taylor. The year before that, I was so convinced on Christian McCaffrey. The year before that, I was convinced on the list goes on and how many times I've been convinced on the number 1 overall pick, and it completely busts up for some reason. That's not even in the player's control sometimes. Just random shit happens throughout the season. Quarterback goes down, Justin Jefferson goes down, something goes wrong, and they can't be the number 1 overall pick. Well, it shouldn't have been the number 1 overall pick, but he's number 1 wide receiver. It's clear as day that he should be the number 1 wide receiver. I think the only other guys that could keep up with him is Chase and Kupp if they're completely healthy.
We talk about the Madden curse. We should talk about the number 1 overall pick curse, like the consensus number 1 overall pick fantasy curse, because that's what seems to happen, right? We put a guy at number 1. Everybody's consensus that guy should be the number 1 pick. And something happens where we're at the end of the year, we're making fun of somebody for drafting that guy number 1 overall. And I told you last year, Mike, just a little thing to me that I told you it seemed too good to be true to take Jonathan Taylor number 1, that it felt like it was just too much to be on there. And now we're doing the same thing with Justin Jefferson this year, which I don't know. I have nothing bad to say about Justin Jefferson. I like everything about him. So I'm with you on the Justin Jefferson number 1 overall pick. So, but I just say maybe there is something to do with a curse there, and I hope that it's not there. Knock on wood or whatever we got to do to take that away. But I'm with you. But your top 5, not a bad top 5, Mike.
I seen Justin
Jefferson. It's not my top 5. It's not Joe Morley's top 5, but it's all right.
In some of the preseason games, I've already seen a lot of Justin Jefferson commercials and stuff. Man, he's the face of the league. He really is being pushed. So I'm excited to see what he does in his career, not just this year.
He's the face of the league?
One of the faces of the league. Sorry.
Oh.
Make sure I get the semantics right.
Well, it's not even semantics. Like he's not a quarterback, so he's not even in the top 5 of the faces of the league.
What? He's in the top 5 of the faces in the league right now.
TikTok kids know who Justin Jefferson
is. Over him.
5. I could go 5 quarterbacks. He's already out. Mahomes. Burrow.
Okay, maybe.
Hurts.
I think they got Jefferson above Hurts.
Yeah.
We're not doing
okay, are you going by
another show?
That's only at 3. We got 3 more to go before we even get there, but we're not talking about it.
If you ask like the youth that watch football who their top 5 is, Justin Jefferson will be in that top 5 by any of the youth that watch it.
I'm the youth. It's me. He's talking about me.
Because Justin Jefferson was Fortnite. He's on TikTok. It's all that stuff that gets Justin Jefferson related to the kids. Come on. Do the dance, Tony.
Basically, what I'm saying is there's so many reasons for why it's not, because Micah Parsons would be ahead of him because he plays for the Cowboys. So you're balancing it position, right? You got to factor that in. And then you got to factor in market. Minnesota's not a huge market. So Justin Jefferson is climbing up. The thing is you're so close to football. Think about what they market on like major posters and like everything you see. Like you see a lot of Justin Jefferson, but like Aaron Donald's in Los Angeles. More of a face of the league than Justin Jefferson, even though he's on the way out. Absolutely.
I think Justin Jefferson's going to be on the Madden cover next year. Aaron Donald will never be on a Madden cover. They would never put a defensive lineman on anything like that.
But that's just that's like
same thing with Micah. Micah will never be on a Madden cover. He's not going to be in all these commercials the NFL's running. I think he's actually been in one, but it was for like State Farm or something, which not quite the same as NFL sponsored commercials with Justin Jefferson running all over NFL Network yesterday.
Continue.
This is an argument that we could do on another show, but I promise you, he's top 5 face in the league right now. I would say Mahomes, and then he's on the level with everyone else he listed, like the same level as everyone else he's listed so far, or better, or higher, more popular.
Yeah,
he created a dance that has infiltrated culture.
Go, Joe. Go with your top 5. A dance that's
not happy with us.
A dance that infiltrated the thing that Mike hangs out on all day long. The TikTok is not the world.
Well, explain this then. How come when you put on Call of Duty, Fortnite, they have like emotes where the characters do the gritty?
They had all those dances on there. My kids would be walking around doing the freaking this one and all this stuff. Like, all those dances are on there. He just had one dance.
But everyone has been doing the gritty. And Justin Jefferson was the first to do it.
But my kids don't know where that comes from. They don't associate that with Justin Jefferson's face.
Football fans do.
Exactly. And I'm
just like the OBJ whip.
Go, Joe. I can't have this conversation with Mike because he's not like it doesn't make. This is why I can't talk to young people. Go, Joe.
You would tackle over him.
So at number 1, I'm just gonna give you number 1 is Justin Jefferson already. I'll just spoil it already. Number 1 is Justin Jefferson in my top 10 list of fantasy football. Justin Jefferson. Anyways, number 5, I dropped Cooper Kupp all the way to number 5 just because he's dealing with that injury, hamstring injury that I think he's gonna deal with all season long. He puts up the numbers, and it was funny. I told Mike that I jinxed Cooper Kupp myself because the day before he got hurt, I was driving home, and I was like, you know what? I might surprise some people and draft Cooper Kupp number 1 overall just because he continues to put numbers up even without quarterback. When Matthew Stafford was down, he still put up numbers. And then the next day it comes out that he had the injury to his hamstring, and I'm like, dang it, I'm not going to do it now. But I dropped him to number 5. Number 4, I have Tyreek Hill. With the Miami Dolphins. You already know what he can do there. Number 3, I have Ja'marr Chase. With Burrow's injury, without Burrow's injuries, I still got him at number 3. Number 2, I have CeeDee Lamb. Like I've said, I think CeeDee Lamb is going to break out and have his thing. Look at that. Joe Burrow looking like a stud. And number 1, Justin Jefferson. So Kupp, Hill, Chase, Lamb, Justin Jefferson. I'm a big believer in CeeDee Lamb this year, even though I don't like the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm worried about their offensive line. But whatever. CeeDee Lamb is going to be that target for Dak Prescott.
And you have him at number 2?
Number 2.
That's awesome.
Love it.
I love that.
I do. I thought I was bold on CeeDee Lamb this year, and both you beat me on that one. I'm with it. And what's funny is that we both have Kupp at number 5, Joe, because I dropped Kupp too because of the hamstring injury, but I'm not dropping him out or below because in a dependent position, it's more that Stafford needs to stay healthy. And I have less injury concerns for Stafford this year than I do for Burrow.
Oh, have you seen that Rams offensive line?
Yeah.
I have.
And also, we're talking about hamstring versus calf. We got to keep reiterating. Calf, you get probable on the injury report.
Yeah.
Hamstring, don't know. Depends on warm-ups.
I got a clip. Minutes 30. I gotta come back to this. 'Cause I'm about to lose my time.
You might be a little too high on CeeDee Lamb, which is shocking to me because You hate the Cowboys. You want them to fail.
Yeah, but Mike, we went to Cowboys camp. Who was the one they were targeting?
Every single play.
I sent you that clip, and you were like, "Who was that?" And I was like, "That's CeeDee Lamb."
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I see that now." He was basically Michael Jacksoning the sideline.
Somebody was talking too about one of the Dak interception problems is that he falls in love with CD and just stares him down just way too often. Like even like not even in practice, but in games. Like you see a lot of his batted balls or bad plays, or he gets to reads late because he just falls in love with CD, which is great for us at fantasy if CD can get all those targets. So I have
one more thing Tony, about. I think that the addition of Brandon Cooks is going to help him a ton. Having that experienced wide receiver in the room with him, and even the addition of Stephon Gilmore and working more than just Trayvon Diggs at practice. Gilmore's a man-to-man stick corner. Trayvon Diggs is more of a step-back zone corner. So you're getting both styles there that CD gets to work against all offseason this year. Everything points up. Moon, CeeDee Lamb, he's going. I'm buying him on Mojo.
Yeah, CD's going to be great. Kupp at 5. I have CD at 4. I have Stephon Diggs at number 3. There's this weird thing that we do with Stephon Diggs every year where it's like, oh, we don't know where to draft him or what to do. And then he just finishes in the top 5 wide receivers every year he's with Josh Allen. Like it just happens every single year. And I don't know why it would be any different this year. He's disgruntled. He's a wide receiver. Many of them are. Tyreek Hill saying the 2K thing, I think it's a real possibility. If Tua's not hurt last year, I think there's a chance that he really pushes for that number. And Justin Jefferson, I want to talk quickly about the 101 thing that you talked about. When we talk about the curse for 101, it seems to be running backs. And what happens is the year before, that running back had 400 touches, had, another 200 pass protection snaps, like takes all of that stuff and then roll it into the next year. And I think it's really hard to do that unless you're like Barry Sanders, or like Emmitt Smith. Like they just don't make guys, it seems like that, where they get that giant workload. And then for whatever reason, the next season they're coming back and they're doing it. And I was listening to somebody who was a football player, and he said, taking away all of the extra hitting doesn't allow for the body to stay healthier. It actually takes away from the condition of the body kind of staying battered, like being used to that level of mistreatment. So while the player feels better on a yearly basis, the body fully heals up. The body then has to be like, oh, wait, I'm being traumatized again. You're putting me back in all these car accidents again. And it feels that stress. And I was like, that's an interesting point. Scientifically, I don't know if it has any merit to it, but I like the way that it sounded. I was like, you know what? I'll buy that. I kind of like what you're talking about when you say that.
So you're saying 1.01, Tony, draft him and don't worry.
I'm drafting Justin Jefferson, and I feel fantastic about it. He's going to be on the cover of Madden. You didn't know that?
Yeah, I'm going to do that too. Yeah. He's the number 1 fantasy football wide receiver, cover of Madden, Sports Illustrated magazine, NFL commercials. He'll be the 15th face of the league. Anyways, Justin Jefferson, draft him, and then if something goes wrong, we can all blame Tony. And I'm going to do it too. Yeah. I'm going to draft Justin Jefferson #1, but if it goes wrong, I have an out now.
100%. There's no way that you can't, like, we look at who are the running backs that we would draft right now. And me personally, I would not draft. If I get a pick in the top, let's say the top 3, I'm probably taking a running back because I like CMC still and I like Austin Eckler. I'm going to take that. But I'm saying for people who want to draft him at 101, like you want to have Justin Jefferson on your team, why wouldn't you take him? Why would you feel bad about it? There's more injury risk for the running back. Mm-hmm. At least, yeah. I don't know if the numbers bear that out. It feels like that anyways. Like it feels like the running backs have a harder time staying healthy. So, yeah.
CMC has a whole history. So, I mean, and he's the guy production-wise that I would put up there and think about drafting 1.01. Eckler, too. But, yeah, they do have a higher injury risk. Draft Justin Jefferson, y'all. I'm convinced. And
here's the thing, too, Tony. When you're talking about running backs and wide receivers, when you are making your top 10 list right now, and Mike is doing the same thing, we were getting 15, 20 deep in wide receiver. and we were like, damn, this is crazy how deep of wide receivers there are for fantasy football this year. Like we had our top 10, we fought with ourselves just to make a top 10. So when you're sitting in that top spot like you are, you're like, should I get a running back? And part of you is an old school, like you're like me, Tony. We're old school fantasy football guys where running backs run your fantasy roster and you win with running backs. Well, it's all changing now with the PPR, with everything else. It's all moving towards wide receivers. But with the depth of wide receivers and what you can get with the top running backs, sometimes you got to weigh the option. And I think you're still sitting there with looking at CMC and Austin Eckler going, well, I can get a couple more points out of these guys and draft another wide receiver that I'm happy with later on.
I'm more so even looking at the receiver or the running backs in that first to second round turn. Those guys have fallen a lot. And I feel like there's a big tier jump from those guys to what you're going to have to wait if you are drafted into the first round all the way around the horn. So I'm still trying to be balanced in the top end of my draft. I'm not just going all receiver unless, like, for whatever reason, I'm in a league and everyone just goes running back. And I can get the top 3 receivers and they're going to carry me all year. Maybe. But, yeah, you're right. This is a really deep thing. But go ahead, Tony.
I was just looking at it because so earlier when we started talking fantasy before Jim Irsay decided to alienate his best player on his team, my 3 running backs that I would take from if I got lucky enough to get 1 through 3 is CMC, Eckler, and Jonathan Taylor. Like I really thought Jonathan Taylor this year next to Anthony Richardson, it didn't matter if the box was loaded or not. Those 2 guys are supreme running athletes and they were just going to dominate. But now when I start to look at it, when I get into that Bijan, Barkley, Chubb, Henry, we don't know about Jacobs. It's like, no, I would much rather have one of those receivers, right? If I could get Jefferson or Tyreek Hill or Stephon Diggs in that 3 to 6 range, sign me up. And then you start factoring in Travis Kelce when you get into 8 and 9 and whatever, then I'm maybe looking at running back at the turn. But I would take those 3 running backs because I know that they're all going to be game planned for heavily every week. Does not matter the opponent. You are trying to find ways to get Eckler and CMC the football and Jonathan Taylor if they would just figure it out and just pay the guy. Just give him $15 million a year. It's Jonathan Taylor.
Pay the man.
Pay him.
Pay him.
Pay the man.
Other receivers right at the edge of this range that we brought up Terry McLaurin, we brought up DK Metcalf. We didn't talk about Keenan Allen. He's back and healthy this year. And again, watching that Dolphins game, it humbles me. Like, this dude gets 10 targets a game. Amari Cooper, I think he's going to have a huge year. We talked about Chris Olave. I have him right there on that edge, too. Jalen Waddle. I mean, there's just so many guys available that could be top 20, top 15, top 10 wide receivers this year. It's very interesting. And, like, even if you go further down the list, like George Pickens, who's going way down there, or yeah, that's about as far as I'll go.
That's
Jerry
as far as you'll go.
Jerry Jeudy season. Who's in for Jerry Jeudy?
Not me.
No.
Not I. I mean, it depends.
Big Booty Judy.
So we talked about late guys, or I said that I might have throw somebody out there. I think like one of those guys that's worth grabbing, and I really hate to say this, like it just bothers me that I'm even probably going to be drafting this guy because he's going undrafted, but it's Sky Moore. Like I just feel like that there's an awesome opportunity at the end to have one of those, like to draft whichever Chiefs receiver you think it's going to be, like you think might lead the team in targets. And for me, it's Sky Moore. And I'm trying to figure it out here. Let me see. So I'm on the Sleeper app, and he's going at 138. Like that's where he's going. He's the 54th receiver drafted, and he has the potential to be the leading like wide receiver for the Chiefs. Why wouldn't you just draft that guy in the last round of your draft and just put him on there, or the second to last round, and just have him just sitting there on your bench? Round 12, 13, 14.
That's kind of my strategy with the Chiefs receivers and the Ravens receivers. Just kind of at the end of the draft, Bateman, Flowers, Moore, MVS. I'd even be down for some MVS on a throwaway pick, just a flyer, try and take a chance on him. And let's just
Rashee Rice.
Let's just see what both Rashee Rice and Justin Ross do in the preseason. Let's just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I think that's not necessarily that they do it, but when they do it. Are they trying to game plan these young guys early on? Like, are they trying to figure out something to get these guys going early in the game? Like, did Andy Reid make it a point to say, hey, I want to try and get Justin Ross on this certain look right away? How does he respond out there? How does Rashee Rice respond in this play early on? If it's just third quarter and Rashee Rice is like making plays, it's a little different because you're playing against guys that aren't even going to be playing the NFL regular season for sure.
Yeah.
Well, this can lead me into mine since you want to give the Chiefs all this love, Tony, because my late round guy, and I've already talked a lot about Isaiah Hodgins, so just keep Isaiah Hodgins in the back of your guys' mind. Again, another guy that's going 13th, 14th, 15th round. Quentin Johnston. I don't think that he's going to finish in the top 20. I don't think he's finishing in the top 10. But I think late in the season, if the Chargers suffer any injuries to the receiver core, even if they don't, even if he's just out there balling out with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams taking that coverage away, making a bunch of big plays down the field, I think Quentin Johnston can be a guy that can really produce for you at wide receiver 2 in the fantasy football playoffs. And that's what I look for at the end of my roster. I look at guys and I go, maybe they're not going to start week 1 in my lineup. Maybe they're not going to start week 10, but week 13, week 14, week 15, what is the outlook of the team that they're on, and what is the possibility of the role they could have by then? And Quentin Johnston seems like a guy that could be amazing come that time of the year.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston will be one of those guys that we will be telling people to pick up when we're doing shows in weeks like 5 and 6. Like, hey, like if you got a spot, just have them there just in case. Like, start grabbing them. Because I think it will be a slow start to the season as long as this Josh Palmer injury isn't too serious. I don't know if you saw that or not, but he went down. He caught a touchdown yesterday and went. Yeah,
they never say they're never going to come out and say it's serious on day one. Like, it's going to take time to figure out these injuries.
Yep.
And I'm going to throw a name out there, and this guy, I don't know if he's going to become a great player or not, but I have a feeling that if the offense can get going, he might be a good target for people later on. And I think he's going as the number 6 overall wide receiver, right? Number 67 overall wide receiver in fantasy right now. Like I said, we're just throwing darts out here, right? So somebody to keep an eye on throughout the season is what I'm looking at, and that's Alec Pierce of the Indianapolis Colts. I think him and Richardson are finding that connection. But Alec Pierce, something that we were a little bit high on last year, maybe a little bit too high as a rookie, but coming into a second year, Alec Pierce is somebody that I would keep an eye on throughout the season. Just put him on your looking or players to watch list throughout the season. You don't have to draft them, but just watch them.
How about Jacoby Myers? Tell us about him, Joe, because I have not been.
He's getting drafted.
But is that a guy that we should be stashing?
Drafting Jacoby Myers somewhere.
Well, I think he's. Where is his ADP at right now? I don't even know.
I don't know where he's at, but you should
I think
he's not in the mid rounds, but you should be drafting Jacoby Myers at least in the 11th, 12th round.
I want to say he's like wide receiver 40 something.
His ADP right now, so I have marked down the last time I checked at least it was 11.01.
Yeah,
I think if Adams suffers any kind of issues, any kind of injury, or if he's just like fuck y'all eventually, then Myers is going to be the guy that Jimmy has to lean on. Or O'Connell, Derek Carr. I mean, Connell, Carr, whoever the fuck that is, they have a backup.
Yeah, wide receiver 55 on Sleeper. 139th overall pick. He also should end up being drafted.
And how about Jonathan Mingo?
I'm gonna take a shot on him. Like, he's in that same range where, like, I think depending on how this preseason goes, if he goes out and has a game like Tank Dell, like I'll draft him in the 9th round, in the 8th round. Like, to be a wide receiver 1, like, I don't think to start the season people are going to be game planning for Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah, and another guy that suffered a lot of soft tissue stuff, Amari Cooper. Keep an eye on DPJ. That might be a guy you want to stash for later on in the season. I love Donovan Peoples-Jones' talent. I think that if they lost Cooper for some reason, at some point he would be the best receiver there in Cleveland alongside Elijah Moore. That'll be fun too. It's another guy to give a shout out to late in your draft. AJ Osborne. No? Yeah.
We don't talk about KJ Osborne in any drafts that I'm in because he will be on every one of my teams. So
you keep that name out of your mouth.
We covered everything.
Either him or Jordan Addison. I'm going to end up with a Vikings receiver on every team. It'll be Justin Jefferson at the 3rd overall pick or KJ Osborne. Here's the thing that I love about the Vikings this year, and I've finally settled in on what it is. They have the kind of defense that you need to score 30 points to win games, and they have the kind of offense that can score 30 points a game. So I am all in on the Minnesota Vikings this year. Their offensive, everybody on the Vikings.
Tony's all about the new man on the Minnesota Vikings.
That's right. They're going to be the funnest 6-win team we've ever watched.
Kirk's about to get paid again.
Oh, yeah.
Let me give a shout out to 2 guys, though. Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. I don't sleep on the Green Bay Packers wide receivers. Just because Rodgers is gone doesn't mean they're not going to put up points.
I was there for a second with you, Joe, and then I thought about it. And this is another thing. We'll end this with some more things that piss me off about Aaron Rodgers. When Aaron Rodgers took over the Green Bay Packers, he inherited an NFC championship game team that was 12-4. And then he went 6-10. Jordan Love is inheriting a team that limped to the end of the season and lost in Detroit, which they never do. Lost to the Lions twice last year. And he's inheriting that team with youngsters all across the board. Like Aaron Rodgers inherited a team with veterans, with Jordy Nelson and Greg Jennings and James Jones and Donald Driver. Like he inherited a really good football team. And Jordan Love is inheriting Aaron Jones. He's got 2 rookie tight ends, a left tackle that is like talked openly on podcasts about whether or not he thinks his back can hang in there for another full season of football. It's like, it's not good. It's not good at all. The defense looks amazing, but the offense, I have questions.
Yeah, Christian Watson's a guy that I'm completely fine with being wrong about going in round 5. Like, I'm not even touching that. I think that even with Rodgers, his targets per game would be like outside the top 30 receivers. I mean, that's nuts to be drafting him, with a draft pick that will be in your starting lineup every week.
Okay, so don't take Watson or Doubs, especially if you're in a league with me. Please don't.
At least Doubs is like just out there at the end of the draft. But round 5, Christian Watson didn't show me enough to be drafting him there.
I'm not taking him round 5.
Don't be sending me Christian Watson and trade offers either in week 4, Joe.
I'm getting all kinds of trades. If you ain't trading, you ain't trying.
All right, let's wrap this up and continue on with our weekend. Hope everybody's having a beautiful Saturday. We appreciate you stopping by MJT Football here. We ran a little longer than we would have liked. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please consider hitting the subscribe button. We're 3 friends who love talking football, but we're always looking for a 4th, and you can become that number 4 by hitting the subscribe button. We should be getting back to doing these live, getting the chats going, engagement here pretty soon. And maybe we'll even, plan something for a fun little live show, a little speakeasy live show while we're in Vegas in a couple of semanas. I believe that's weekend for the Spanish-speaking audience here. You don't need to Google Translate that one.
Tuned into this right now. We got you Sunday mornings throughout the season. Every Sunday morning, we get up early, get our coffee in, and we give you guys the start sits for your lineups. So make sure to turn on notifications. Notifications will let you know when we go live on Sunday mornings for the Fantasy Football wake-up call, as we call it. Be ready for that. But, yeah, Tony, finish the outro. Just want to throw that in there real quick.
Shake and bake. Shake and bake, baby. All right, let's get out of here. Somebody end this recording. I don't know.